So now what we're going to do is that we're going to get the camera ready to shoot for VR. The cameras come in with different setups to take photos, to take videos, and within the videos, how to take time-lapse videos, and how to take regular 1080p HD videos to videos with higher resolution, and whether they have a wide angle like right now we're doing this or not. But for VR, there are very specific settings that will allow you, when it gets time to bring in the footage, to stitch them together. What do I mean by that? Remember that to do VR with GoPros, what you do is that you put them in a harness where 6 of these cameras are all pointing at different directions but within the harness. Once you are done recording, you take all the video footage from each of the 6 cameras, you bring them into a piece of software, and then you have to combine or stitch. The terminology that is used in VR is stitching the footage together, so that when you combine the footage of all 6 of these cameras, you get the 360 global view. However, the main thing is, one, that the cameras have the metadata, meaning the information of date and time, that all are in the same date and time, all 6 cameras, and that all 6 cameras have the video setups that will allow the stitching to go as smooth as possible within the software. Different softwares have different settings. However, the majority of the best types of softwares out there to create VR have kind of come up with a standard on how to set up these cameras in terms of shooting video. So let's go ahead and let's do that. We turn on the camera. We see that it's version 5, so it has been updated. We see that it's 1440 by 60, which is something that we want for the VR, and that it has 2 clips in the memory card. So we are in video mode. Remember the modes? We can go to single mode for photos, burst, we can have the setup, and we can have video. We want to be in video because what we are altering are the settings for the video in the video mode. So once we are in the right mode, which we're in the video mode, the next thing we do is we hit the wrench and we start looking at the menus. So the first thing is video. The second thing is the resolution that you want. In this case, we want to have it 1440. Normally, when you are in the default mode, which we have reset all these cameras to be in the default manufacturer mode, they will be in something called 1080. So what do I do? Using the record button is the one that we are going to go and use in order to switch the camera into the different settings. In this case, we want to go to 1440. And then the next level is 30 frames instead of 30. The advisable frame rate that we need to use is 60. So we go and we find 60. Then we go to something called FOI, which is kind of the viewpoint of the camera. And there's nothing that you can do. You have to leave it in wide. And that is something that's going to come helpful when it gets time to do the VR. Then the next level is this, which is the low light sensor. You want to have the low light sensor on just in case. The next item on the menu is something called the spot meter, which is something that you use in order to shoot from a dark space while pointing the camera into a brighter setting. So for example, I'm inside a car. What we want to point out is the action that's taken inside the car, not outside. So you will have to have that on when you're shooting regular video in order for the camera to make the brighter portion the part that is darker, which is inside the car, and not pay attention to the outside, which is where the sunlight is coming from. Then the next thing is PT. PT, believe it or not, is called ProTune. These cameras were designed originally to be able to combine music and action, video action. So having the ProTune on allows, when you're shooting a regular video, to make be able to make the sound, the music, and the beats in the music kind of match the action on the video. In this case, we are turning it on because when you are working in VR, having the Pro Tune actually allows for a higher quality video in terms of how the files are encoded and the amount of megabits per second of data that the camera is processing. So in this case is on. The next level is white balance, and in this case we want to make sure that white balance is at what they call native. We want to be able to manipulate color and shades of color and reference of white color in the software, not have the computer, not have the camera interpret what white is. The reason why is that if you are shooting something, for example, underwater, what is your reference point for white? So therefore, by leaving it native, everything is at default, is a particular shade. So all the clips from all 6 cameras will have the same reference point. The next level is the type of color or tinting that the clips may have. And what we want to do is the same thing that we did with the white balance. We want to switch it to something called flat. So we are native for white, flat for color. The next level that we have right here has to do with the shutter. And in this case, we want to leave it in automatic. The next level, or the next option that we have to set in, has to do with the amount of light, the ISO, just like in cameras. And because let's say if we're shooting in low light, the ISO has to be in 1600. If we're shooting in bright light, in 400, just like if we had an all film camera. I'm gonna leave it at 1600 right now. We are indoors and with low light, so I'm gonna go ahead and leave it at that. Then the next level or option that we have has to do with the type of sharpness that we get, and in this case the recommended is low or medium. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it in medium. We leave this section in 0, and then we go to the next. We don't need to reset the Pro Tune. All we have to do is exit and we are done. We can shoot video now for VR.